Excellency Dr. Hadiza Sabua Balarabe, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, giving us her welcoming remarks. It's been barely 24 hours since we lost an icon, a personality that those aged 50 years and below would find it very hard to remember anyone other than him, leading us culturally in Kaduna State and beyond. I'm talking about our late Emir, Alhaji Dr. Shehu Idris, who passed on to the great beyond. I would now ask that we all stand for 1 minute of silence to remember a man who did his best while he could. Please, let's all stand. May Al-Jannah Firdaus be his final abode. Please, let's take our seats. Now, after the welcoming remarks of the Deputy Governor, we'll be moving on swiftly to the presentation on the overview of Kadinvest 4.0, unveiling of the Kadinvest 5.0, and launching the report Kaduna 2020 by His Excellency Malam Nasser Ahmad El-Rufai, the Governor of Kaduna State. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Can we share the slides, please? Your Excellency, our leader and mentor, President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, Your Excellency, my colleague, the Deputy Governor of the state, captains of industry, my colleagues on the Kaduna State government side, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you once again to the 5th edition of Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit. What I will try to do is to provide an overview of the infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation strategies of Kaduna State. Next slide. In this presentation, very quickly, I will try to cover, please go back. After an introduction, I'll try to cover the Kadinvest story, how we started from 2016, and how we've done since then, particularly looking at our achievements in 2019. 2020 has been annus horribilis, a year of many disasters, but also a year of many opportunities. It has given us negative impact, but also has presented certain opportunities. And I will end with where we aspire to be, our future plans, and end with a pitch to why anyone should invest in Kaduna State, because there are 36 states in Nigeria and the FCT, and we are competing with all of them. Next slide. Your Excellency, Mr. President, our cardinal agenda in Kaduna is to provide a conducive environment for the private sector to drive the economy and create jobs. We employ less than 100,000 people out of the 10 million people that live in Kaduna State. So the government must provide an enabling environment such that the private sector can invest and create the jobs for millions. So we are driven by, since we came into office, we've tried to develop policies and actions and reforms to make Kaduna the state of choice for investment decisions. In 2014, Your Excellency, we were ranked by the World Bank as the 24th state in the ease of doing business out of 36 states and the FCT. We have tried since then to put in policies to ensure that our state moves to the top of the table. And I'm happy to say that by 2018, we had become number one by the special grace of God. Mr. President, we believe that the private sector provides the fastest way to create jobs and to be globally competitive. And with a state that has 89% of its population below the age of 35, job creation is our major challenge. This is why we came up with Kadinvest, Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit. We felt it's a critical vehicle to showcase Kaduna, to show our progress on an annual basis, and attract investors. Since we started this in 2016, Your Excellency, we have attracted both domestic and foreign investments worth over $800 million. And this year alone, we've had investment announcements of over $2.1 billion, far ahead of Lagos and any other state in the country. We have been able to facilitate these investments, Your Excellency, by the creation of one-stop shop called the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, chaired by the Deputy Governor, to operationalize and ensure the implementation of our Ease of Doing Business Charter. We came up with steps to make Kaduna easier to do business. And KADIPA, the Investment Promotion Agency, became the main interface with the private sector to ensure investments come to Kaduna. And they have been quite successful, as you can see, Mr. President. Next slide. In the last 5 years, we have attracted 20 new businesses to Kaduna. We've attracted both local and foreign investments worth $800 million. We've facilitated investments through the creation of one-stop shop. We've developed the capacity of KADIPA now to move from attracting investments into engaging in public-private partnerships, because we find that some investors have more confidence when the government invests in a minority shareholding in their companies. In Kadinvest 1, we got 25 businesses and $500 million, including the Olam feed mill and hatchery, Mr. President, which you commissioned in September 2017. In Kadinvest 2, we launched, next slide, please. In Kadinvest 2, 2017, we launched the Kaduna State Development Plan. This was a 5-year plan of how we intend to develop our state. We launched sector investment plans for each sector, drive government-owned Kudenda Power Station. 84 megawatts plus 215 megawatts will give us about 300 megawatts, which is enough to power all the industries in Kaduna. We are investing in housing and urban development. We are building houses around Rigasa and many parts of Kaduna that will sell to citizens and with a mortgage bundle. We are aggressive about social development. We are addressing the Almajiri problem. We are addressing the issue of rape and gender-based violence. We are building roads all over, Mr. President, and we are expanding our water resources capability. And here, I want to appreciate the Federal Minister of Water Resources for his support. I also want to thank Mr. President for authorizing that Dangote Industries can build 3 roads in Kaduna and get that from the tax credit arising from the executive order you've signed. The work is yet to start. Mr. President, we urge that you get the ministers to authorize the beginning of this work. We've attracted, as I said, both domestic and foreign investments worth about $800 million. This is all there. Damau Milk Farm. Mr. President, this is one of our flagship projects. Damau is a grazing reserve that we are converting into a ranch and housing and schools and vet clinics, and we are resettling, we hope to resettle about 10,000 Fulani families. We are starting with 1,000. The whole project will cost 15 billion naira. The Central Bank of Nigeria graciously agreed to lend us 10 billion. Kaduna State Government and ALA of Denmark are putting up 5 billion naira to do this. We believe, Mr. President, if this succeeds, we have taken the first step in showing the nomadic Fulani that they can sedentarize and still make a lot of money. In Damau, we will have pasture, we will have vet clinics, we will have schools, hospitals, and housing, low-cost housing for the pastoralists to settle down and engage in livestock production. We are also bringing crossbreeds of cattle that will raise milk production from an average of 2 liters a day to 20 liters a day, thereby multiplying the income of the pastoralists 10 times. TMDK Agro-Industrial Park is building fertilizer and many other things. These are $25 million investments. There's a pharmaceutical company coming up. We have Sunseed feed mill in Zaria, Kaduna ICT hub, which was built by Zenith Bank, and we equipped it. Tomato Jos is doing a farm as well as tomato processing plant. Africa Industries Group, Africa Steel, Your Excellency, is building a $600 million iron ore processing and steel construction plant. We hope, Mr. President, to invite you before the end of 2021 to commission this plant, which will produce made-in-Nigeria steel for the first time in Nigeria's history. What we've not been able to do with Ajakuta in 60 years, Mr. President, you will achieve in Kaduna with a $600 million private investment. We're investing $100 million in affordable housing. Mahindra has built a tractor plant, about $3 billion, and Matrix Tractors is also coming to build a second tractor plant here in Kaduna. Neighborhood centers, shopping malls are all being built. Olam Hatchery, which you commissioned, and Blue Camel and Energy, Mr. President, is an indigenous company that is assembling solar power lights, solar grids here in Kaduna, and training many of our young people. Stanbic IBTC has collaborated with us to build an incubation hub where we take young businesses and guide them to create new businesses. We are also talking to 2 aviation companies to start an Abuja-Kaduna shuttle. Every hour, you will have a flight to Abuja and Kaduna. It will be 20, 30 minutes to get to Abuja and Kaduna, so that it will supplement the train system and many others. These are just some of the highlights that we like to make, Mr. President. We've also developed a public-private partnerships policy and manual, because apart from the investments, we now want to start putting Kaduna State's money into some of these investments. We will get dividends in the future. Sometimes we contribute land, sometimes we put a little money, but we are minority shareholders because we don't want dominant government ownership to destroy businesses. But we realize that some businesses like to see the government there as a partner to hold their hands. So we've developed this manual. It's the first, I think we're the only state with a PPP manual that has the support of the World Bank. And we hope that we'll use it to do more road expansion, expand the electricity grid, as well as farming and mining and rural electrification. Next slide. We also have a digital strategy, Mr. President. Kaduna State has been far ahead of most other states in respect of digitization of government. We have digitized several government service setups for ease of access. Most of our investors now apply online. Most of our taxes are paid online. You can apply for land, Kaduna Geographic Information Service, virtually. So by the time the COVID-19 came and we have to operate virtually, it was very easy for us in Kaduna State. All these areas that interface with businesses, CAD IRS for taxes, KASUBDA for planning approvals, KEPA for environmental approvals, are all digitized, and they all share the same platform. Even registering your business with Business Innovation and Technology is now online. So today, Your Excellency, we are unveiling Kadinvest 5.0, which focuses on infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation. We think these three are connected. When we provide infrastructure, industrialization is easier. With industrialization, you attract people of various skills, and that's how you can drive innovation. So this next slide is just to welcome everyone. Welcome you, Mr. President. Welcome everyone to Kadinvest 5.0, because in this summit, we are looking at innovative ways of triggering growth and finding lasting solutions to both economic, environmental challenges. COVID-19 has brought many problems, but it has also brought opportunities. Opportunities in developing digital businesses, e-commerce, e-government, as well as developing logistics businesses, because most people will prefer to stay at home and get their groceries delivered instead of going to the market and get exposed to COVID-19. So there are many opportunities. Courier companies, we are all encouraging this kind of businesses here in Kaduna so that we create more job opportunities for our people. This is why the theme of Kadinvest is focused on the 3 I's: innovation, infrastructure, and industrialization. So where do we want to be? Mr. President, we have 2.5 to 3 years to go, and we have this opportunity which we started when you flagged off my campaign, Mr. President. Our slogan was "Make Kaduna Great Again." Sadly, Donald Trump stole this from us. We cannot sue him because he has immunity, but we started this in 2014, Mr. President. And what do you mean by "Make Kaduna Great Again"? I will read what was in our manifesto, Mr. President, which you approved. We want Kaduna to be a state where there are abundant economic opportunities and prosperity, social inclusion, peace and security, good governance, and improved quality of lives of the citizenry. This is our goal. This is the future Kaduna we want. We want a Kaduna that is home to every Nigerian. We want to overtake Lagos in terms of being cosmopolitan. We want every Nigerian to feel at home in Kaduna. And what is our vision of the future? Right now, we expect that our population will increase by 3.7 million in the next 15 years and 7.6 million by 2050. 40% of the population is under the age of 15 right now. We have increasing male population, and this is why this government is focused on ensuring that whatever we do, we have not 35% female, but if possible 50-50, because they are half of the population. Kaduna has a population in search of jobs, infrastructure, and industry, and we have to work on that. The map shows the demography. We are the 3rd largest state in Nigeria in terms of population, and of course, we give President Buhari his 3rd large number of votes since he started contesting in 2003, and we are very proud. We have many infrastructure investment opportunities, Mr. President. because we have, given our population dynamics and infrastructure deficits, we have to invest in infrastructure to meet the needs of our citizens and our businesses, and we are doing that. Kaduna has opportunities to absorb as much as 20 trillion to fund state infrastructure over the period to 2018 to 2050. We have started work on that, and we're inviting the private sector to join us. We are in the process of developing the new State Development Plan 2021 to 2025, which aims to consolidate on our achievements. We are also developing new sector implementation plans 2022 to 2024 to serve as mechanism to link the plans to the annual budget. We have a Sustainable Development Goals Acceleration Plan to fast-track our attainment of SDGs by 2030 by the grace of God. These are all linked to all our policy documents and part of the targets of our policy councils. So what are our future plans? Next slide. In agriculture, we want to increase share of agricultural sector to 40% of overall GDP and achieve a 20% contribution of agro-allied output to GDP. In electrical and electronics, we want to attract electrical and electronics industries in Kaduna and achieve a 10% share of that sector in our GDP. We want Kaduna to regain its position of being a motor vehicle assembly hub. We already have PAN, Pujo Automobile. We have 2 tractor assembly plants already, with a 3rd one on the way. And with Dangote Pujo coming with a big partnership, including a Chinese company that will assemble a whole, from trucks to the smallest vehicle and SUVs, we think Kaduna can reclaim its position as the automotive hub of Nigeria. Then textiles. We are working with Mr. President, the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Industry and Trade and Investment to revive our brownfield textile industries and improve support services provided to our cotton farmers. We are working with a group in China that is willing to come in here because Chinese wages are rising, so they want to relocate their factory to Nigeria. We are to visit China in March, but because of COVID-19, that has been slowed down. But so these are the 4 areas, among others, that we want to focus in. And then ICT, of course, which is the future. And we want to inject ICT in everything, from agriculture to manufacturing to education. We want to increase penetration of electricity all across our state, particularly renewables. We are putting solar power in all our primary health centers. All our schools will have solar grids so that they don't need to rely on the public grid, and we save money. And we want to increase the capacity of the grid in Kaduna to at least 400 megawatts. Mining and quarrying, we've already obtained licenses. We have Kaduna Mining Development Company that is partnering with international mining investors to develop our licenses in gold, tantalite, iron ore, and nickel. We've got incredible cooperation from the Minister of Solid Minerals, and we're very grateful for that. Then transport. We are expanding our road network. We are providing interstate and intrastate transportation schemes from BRT to light rail with the support of the federal government and the Exim Bank of India. So we hope, Your Excellency, with all this, we will create between 2 million and 7 million jobs by the year 2050. We will boost our GDP by 50%. We will substitute many imports because many of the things that are imported now will be produced in Kaduna for the rest of Nigeria. We'll also create wealth. We will raise household income to 102 billion by 2023 by the grace of God. Our stable investment climate will enable us to have a 34% increase in business registration, and we hope to give many of our youth jobs exploiting the relatively cheap labor compared to what is going on in China and many other countries. All these measures have have got the private sector very interested in Kaduna. But at the end of the day, Mr. President, why should anyone invest in Kaduna? Now, we think the first reason is that we are the most improved state in ease of doing business. We are number one in the ease of doing business overall in Nigeria. We are also number one in property registration. If you purchase property or you apply for property, you are likely to get it faster in Kaduna than any state in Nigeria. We've overtaken all the other states, including Aegis in Abuja, which I established, which unfortunately is no longer number one, but Kaduna is number one. We are ranked also first in enforcing contracts. Our courts are very, very good at resolving commercial disputes, and they are very fast, and they are very honest about it. We are number 5 in ease of registering businesses now, but our target is that by 2022, Your Excellency will be number 1. We are number 6. We have this, we have the 4th largest landmass. That is not correct. It's not 6. We have the 4th largest landmass in Nigeria, of which only 1/3 is under cultivation. So we have a large amount of land that is arable that we can give out. And we are endowed with a very large youth population. 89% of our population is below the age of 35. So we welcome you to Kadinvest, and we welcome all of you to join us to make Kaduna great again. And Mr. President, we promise you, by the time you are done, you will come back to your hometown of Kaduna, and you will find it a very nice place to retire. Thank you, Your Excellencies, and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was His Excellency, Malam Nasser Ahmed El-Rufai, the Governor of Kaduna State. From scrapping to creating new ministries that are more in tune with the times now, to a radical drive for growth in our internally generated revenue, Kaduna State is a hotbed of activities right now. I'm sure that we can all agree. That was the governor giving us an overview of the 4 summits and the results that have come forth from those summits, the past 4, and of course unveiling this 5th one. Allow me at this time to welcome His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for his address. Your Excellency, sir.
that are being opened by federal government investment, such as Ajakuta, Kaduna, Kano gas pipeline. The state should afford full cooperation and support to cross-border federal projects such as Ajakuta, Kaduna, Kano pipeline, and the Abuja, Kaduna, Zaria, Kano highway. As you focus on the theme of Kadinvest 5, infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, I wish you productive deliberations and further success in developing Kaduna State. I also appeal to all indigenes of Kaduna State to cooperate with the government and in the state. We must live together as brothers and sisters, because without peace, development cannot take place. I thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you so much, our Father and President. Indeed, peace is not negotiable. We need peace for development, just as he said in his address. It is something that all men, all of us, should strive for. I have been told that at this point, the President would like to leave us. If this is true, I would ask that we all rise as the President departs. Thank you very much. While we wait for our next speakers. Okay, all right.
Nasir El-Rufai. We believe the change we seek will come only by taking the necessary action. To do this, we believe there is no better time than now to and neighborhood centers that suit the present and future needs of our people. In the process of delivering the numerous projects under our portfolio, 1,617 residents have been gainfully employed in different capacities across the state. We have exceeded the revenue target of the Kaduna State Economic Development Plan for the retail sector through direct investments of 18.6 billion naira from the private sector to finance 25 infrastructure entrepreneurial spirit of our people and inspire in us a culture of excellence. Our resolve is to modernize our existing facilities using competent and quality-driven contractors and developers who ensure that health and safety guidelines are adhered to and goals are reached in a timely manner. At KMDMC, we are committed to serving the people of our state by creating the right environment to prosper and thrive. In pursuit of our mandate, we have embarked on numerous projects across the state, most notable of which are the Galaxy Mall. The mall will be the first of its kind in Kaduna, providing world-class infrastructure to the deserving people of Kaduna and a desirable location for globally recognized brands to serve our people. The new Kawo market located in Kaduna will consist of 2,700 shops and is expected to be completed in 18 months at a cost of 2.94 billion naira. The Kasuan Sabongari market located in Zaria, which will consist of 3,338 shops. This project is expected to be completed in 18 months at the cost of 2.66 billion naira. The Kasuan Magani market located in Kajuru, which will consist of 2,024 shops. The construction of the new market is expected to be completed in the last quarter of 2020. The sale of shops at the Sheikh Abubakar Mahmoud Gumi market will ensure the transfer of over 6,500 shops to traders in partnership with PwC and Sterling Bank. In addition, we are remodeling Motala Square into a world-class sporting and hospitality center. The square will consist of an Olympic-sized swimming pool, renovated central pavilion, a new clubhouse, and a boutique hotel, amongst other facilities. KMDMC is changing the way business is done in Kaduna. It is modernizing the way markets operate and giving a much-needed facelift to the commercial sector. With continued support from the government and residents of Kaduna, the final outcome is sure to establish Kaduna State as one of the top destinations for commerce in Africa. For more information, kindly visit our website at www.kadunamarket.com.
Okay, well, welcome back from that brief interlude. At this point, I'm being told that we have another eminent personality who has joined us virtually in the person of His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the Executive Governor of Lagos State. He has a goodwill message for us. Your Excellency, sir. Your Excellency, please go ahead. Okay. Well, it is indeed a virtual event, so there will be some glitches, and it's raining here in Kaduna, and so it is understandable that we will be having a few hitches along the way. But can you hear us in Lagos? Your Excellency. Okay, while we're trying to sort that out, I would ask that we move on quickly to what we have next. Okay. At this point, I'll be asking for the keynote speech by Mr. Bismarck Rewane. the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Do we have Mr. Bismarck Rwani?
Yes, you have me.
Okay, sir. You're welcome. Would like
Thank
your
you.
keynote speech.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Chairman of the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am indeed honored and humbled to be invited to deliver this keynote speech at the Kaduna 5.0 Summit. The Kadinvest 5.0 is particularly auspicious because of its timing, relevance, and functionality. This is a period when Nigeria as a country is grappling with how to contain and moderate the fallout of the global and domestic pandemic, while simultaneously pressing the reset button to address the structural macroeconomic defects that have been with us for a long time. I must say that some of these pre-existing macroeconomic conditions have existed in Nigeria for over 50 to 60 years. But before I delve into the theme of today, which is infrastructure, the three I's, infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, I would like to spend a few minutes to discuss the historical, cultural, and economic relevance of the city of Kaduna and the state in the context of the economic transition of Nigeria to becoming a 21st century African tiger, if I may be pardoned. Kaduna was and is the nucleus of economic activity and the center of gravity of the politics of the whole northern region. It is more than anything else the political city, just as Zaria was and remains the academic city of the whole northern region and indeed of Nigeria. Your Excellency, permit me to say that Sir Ahmadu Bello of blessed memory, the Sardana of Sokoto, and the first premier of northern Nigeria, ensured that Kaduna was the political mecca of all in Nigeria. The largest government-owned development institution at the time, the NNDC, was headquartered in Kaduna. At its peak, the NNDC had 146 subsidiaries and cut across no less than 25 sectors. In today's terms, and using the dollar exchange rate of the 1980s, the total footing in assets of the NNDC is almost equivalent to the market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange in 2020. Yes.
Well done.
It employed thousands of workers and was a training ground for a group of managers and leaders that have helped chart a path of success for the Nigerian economy. Your Excellency, Governor Rufai, I chose my words deliberately when I said that Kaduna became the nucleus of economic activity and the center of gravity of the Nigerian political calculus. Then, and to a large extent now, the dictionary meaning of the word nucleus is, and I quote, the central and most important part of any object, movement, or group forming the basis for its activity and growth. In physics, it is defined as the positively charged central core of an atom, consisting of protons and neutrons and containing nearly all its mass. So what is the meaning of Kaduna being or was the nucleus of economic activity? It is that Kaduna was the central and most important part of the object, that is the economic activity of Nigeria, forming the basis for its activity and growth. Kaduna was and could become again the nucleus of the economics of the northern region and indeed the whole of Nigeria and West Africa. As we deliberate and discuss the strategies to attract investors into Kaduna, we must bear in mind that Kaduna was and also the nucleus again of the 21st century Nigerian economy. The state has a comparative advantage in the cultivation of the following crops, and the governor has rolled out this. We see rice, ginger, soybean, and animal husbandry. It is the home of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Training Center and houses a flight training simulator, the only one in West Africa, and is a core of general aviation industry in Nigeria. Kaduna State domiciles the Nigerian Defense Academy and the training ground of the officer corps of the Nigerian military and command structure. The Nigerian textile industry, as you alluded to, Mr. Governor, had its hub in Kaduna State and with considerable and vast investment across the entire value chain, from spinning to weaving and textile production in all its ramifications. It also boasts of the potential in the movie, theater, arts, and music industry. Today, it has an unemployment rate of 39.8, which is higher than most other parts of it. It has an inflation rate of 13.11 and has a poverty rate of 43.8. This data point gives Kaduna State a composite score of 31.35 and is 27th rank amongst the 36 states in the Prosperity Misery Dynamics Index. These challenges also provide an opportunity, and Malam El-Rufai is not known to shy away from challenges. Therefore, today, as we discuss the way forward, we should also set a goal of the restoration of the pride of Kaduna as the investment hub of the northern region, and to use its central position to galvanize resources and talent to achieve this goal. I wish to make some observations on how this state government has taken advantage of adversity and turned it into opportunity in the past. The first example I would like to address is when the Abuja airport was closed. When the Abuja airport was closed for runway rehabilitation for approximately 9 months, the Kaduna state government was able to mobilize resources and make Kaduna airport an alternate to Abuja. It also worked assiduously to upgrading Kaduna airport into an international airport standard and secured the Ethiopian Airlines to make it one of its destinations even after Abuja airport reopened. Mr. Governor and investors, the state government has also worked hard to ensure that Abuja-Kaduna rail has become a catalyst for movement between the FCT and Kaduna. And you said this in your opening remarks. When the highway between Abuja and Kaduna had become a nightmare for motorists, I believe that at this summit, participants will discuss how to identify other opportunities that can be used to leverage the capital stock in Kaduna and North Central and Northwestern Nigeria at this time. The second point I made earlier is that Kaduna was the center of gravity of Nigerian politics and remains in a nuanced form that same center of gravity today. What does the center of gravity mean? It is defined as the center of mass, the point at which the entire weight of a body may be considered as concentrated, so that if supported, at this point, the body will remain in equilibrium in any position. So how does Kaduna fit into that definition of center of gravity? It is time that after the military coup of 1960, a crop of young professionals, military officers and bureaucrats met regularly in Kaduna to discuss issues of common interest and patriotic initiatives to defend Nigerian interests in general and northern interests in particular. The group became so powerful in its selfless pursuit of group interests that it became known as the Kaduna Mafia. With the balkanization of Nigeria by creation of more states, the group became less cohesive and fragmented, thereby losing its importance and influence. Again, as Kaduna State goes through the trauma of violence, banditry, and dysfunctional activity, I am optimistic that this phase shall also pass, and the restoration of the dignity of Kaduna, both politically and economically, will coincide as the state will attain a stage of economic takeoff. Some quick facts. Kaduna's GDP is $10.3 billion. Its growth rate is 3.18, higher than that of the national economy. Income per capita is $1,600, lower than that of Nigeria in general. Number of tertiary institutions are 23, highest in the country. Population, 8.76 to 10 million. Inflation rate, 3.11. Ginger is the largest producer in the country, soya bean, rice, and you mentioned others. Internally generated revenue of 26.88 billion. Gross FAC allocation, 55.73 billion. Your Excellency, recurrent expenditure of 57.64 billion and capex of 19 billion naira. Foreign debt of $232 million and domestic debt of 84.64 billion naira. The theme of this year's event is the 3 I's: infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation. It is so important that it raises a major question, which is therefore, how can these 3 variables or concepts help in the transformation of all drastically changing economic momentum and growth in Kaduna State and Nigeria? Nigeria today luckily has adopted an investment-led strategy in a mixed economic model. Mr. President will attest to that, and we are moving in the right direction. Free market economics blended with a dose of state intervention and support. The national income identity equation, even after being savaged by COVID, is $459 billion, of which investment is $103 billion. For Nigeria to achieve an income per capita of $3,000 per head, we need to grow the GDP in a radical manner from $459 billion to $630 billion. This can be achieved mainly by massive investment in infrastructure, a solid boost in industrialization, using the old model of the third industrial revolution. This will be simultaneously complemented by a disruptive innovation of the fourth industrial revolution. At this summit, with the likes of Facebook, Apple, Google, TikTok, Microsoft, and so on, having a handshake with the GEs and Boeings of the world, and collaborating with the large private equity funds, we are bound to have a very stimulating and illuminating session where ideas, initiatives, and more than anything else, checks will be written, deals closed, and final investment decisions made. This, more than anything else, will be that major step towards the restoration of pride and the big move towards Kaduna getting back to its role as the nucleus of economic activity in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Governor El-Rufai, and all other investors here, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak at this summit. Thank you.
That was Mr. Bismarck Rewani, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Thank you for that keynote speech. Are we connected now? Do we have a better connection with Lagos? If we have a better connection with Lagos, at this time I would like to hear the goodwill message to us from the Executive Governor of Lagos State, His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Your Excellency, sir.
Everyone in Kaduna. His Excellency the President of Nigeria, President Muhammad Buhari, in absentia. I don't know how Mr. Nasiru and Malam Nasiru allowed him to leave because I've been watching and listening attentively. My brother, my senior brother, His Excellency Malam Nasiru El-Rufai, Excellency Deputy Governor, distinguished speakers for Kadinvest 5.0, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, actually, we are also organizing a retreat for our cabinet members and permanent secretaries. But I felt highly excited that I can join this 5.0 Kadinvest for two reasons. First, for me, is I see Kaduna State as one of the states in which I continue to do peer review. And secondly, also just to honor my very good brother and friend, Malam Nasiru El-Rufai. And so, indeed, I want to commend the state government and the leadership of Malam Nasiru El-Rufai for putting this together again. This year, even given the very global pandemic that all of us have had to go through, Kadinvest 5.0 has defied all that odds and has rolled out a very rich program and discussion of engagement that all participants, I'm sure, will benefit from. And like we've listened, the themes for this year's event, it's the 3 I's: infrastructure, innovation, and industrialization. I think it's an appropriate time in which it's been a very worthwhile, thought-provoking themes. You know, industrialization is something that all of us cannot do away with, and Kaduna taking the lead on that now, I think is important. Infrastructure, everybody talks about infrastructure from all arms and from every part of the country. And so Kaduna also putting that as the major topical issue today, I think is also very appropriate. And finally, innovation. You certainly cannot do anything going forward, even post-COVID now, without thinking out of the box, without innovating. And so I'm very, very pleased to be part of the conversation today and to having listened, you know, in the last 1 hour, especially the very brilliant presentation by Malam Nasiru El-Rufai, and seeing all of the giant strides that the state has been about for the past 5 years. I cannot but commend your government and your team, you know, for setting this right direction in Kaduna State and in that part of the country. And I can say that for us as a state government too, we are also seeing common denominators in the kind of things that we're planning to do in the last 16, 18 months that we've been in government. And for example, part of the innovative ways that we have in our Innovation Council, we've identified young, brilliant Nigerians, you know, we've supported them, you know, ensuring that they have a means even beyond COVID-19. I will also want to commend and acknowledge your establishment of the Ministry of Business, Innovation, and Technology as part of your new reform agenda. I've listened that there are 3 ministries, and that you've brought to bear and review of additional 3. And listening to what has come about these new ministries, I cannot but commend your growth plan and all of the things that you have set forward for Kaduna State. I also listened very carefully around your 5 policy implementation council. I must commend that this is very innovative and one of the things that other states also can learn from. I believe that there's a lot for both of us to learn. There's a lot that our various states can learn, from one another in terms of promoting innovation, in terms of attracting investment for infrastructure and industrialization. And it is my hope that this summit will, among others, fashion out ways in which we can have, like I said, institutionalizing peer review, and knowledge sharing, amongst our states. Malam will remember that sometime last year, I did set a small challenge for him. You're number 1 in the ease of doing business ranking in Nigeria currently. And I said to you that you are 4 years ahead of me, and that by 2023, not only will I be competing with that position, I believe that the least that will happen is we'll both probably be sharing the number first position if I cannot outpace you, and that is a challenge, that I think it's appropriate. It's only for me, it's only
us there. And for me, I was really listening really hard to what the governor was saying with his goodwill message. Okay, he's back with us. Your Excellency.
Thank you very, very much. I think, just to explain, in Lagos, we're doing what we call a 3,000-kilometer fiber connectivity, removing the barriers around internet connectivity, right? So it's a shame that Lagos that wants to be the connectivity hub of the country are having these glitches. But it's the reality of where we find ourselves. This is a new normal, right? All of us need to continue to innovate and know that, internet connectivity, fiber connectivity is one of the things that must be working in all of our various states. And so just in concluding, I want to commend Malam Nasir El-Rufai. I want to commend Madam Deputy Governor and the entire cabinet. We know you're doing great things in Kaduna. There's certainly no doubt about that. We want to continue to wish you all the very, very best. We will be doing our own economic summit sometime about 5-6 weeks further down the line. And I'm hoping that we can also extend the same invitation to Your Excellency to also join us in Lagos. Lagos continues to remain as the economic nerve center of the country. I'm not sure we want to share that with anybody. Though we're the tiniest, I know you can consume me 20 times over in terms of size, and all of it. And I'm building the biggest rice factory, the rice mill in the country. So we still have a lot of collaboration to do. Maybe it's with party that I will need to come over. Maybe it's ensuring that it's even the tomatoes that they are doing so very well in Kaduna that we need to bring down to Lagos and see how we also can do further value addition. Whatever it is, I see a collaboration, a very healthy one for that matter, between Lagos State and Kaduna State. And I want to wish Your Excellency the very, very best. And while we continue to, observe and see that Kadinvest 5.0 will be a place of reference. Thank you very much. And I yield the floor back to you. Thank you very much.
Lagos State. There were lots of things I heard. Been corrected. To hear the governor of what we used to, what we still know as small but mighty, Lagos State is small, doing great things, to say, you know, every once in a while he wants to check back now and see what Kaduna State is doing so that he checks on his peer and ensure that he's not being left behind. I think that is a very great compliment for Kaduna State at this point, where Lagos State is beginning to say, you know what, there's some people we need to check up on. And it would seem like the era of healthy rivalry is back. You know, trying to get one up on each other. It's a beautiful thing. And for every Kadunan, it is, there's everything to be happy about. All right, so at this point, we're going to be moving on quickly to a very short documentary. And then that short documentary is going to morph into a plenary session. The documentary is titled Domesticating Industry. Right after that, I will be introducing our moderator for that plenary session. Enjoy.
If Kaduna State is only known for one thing, then an industrial hub.
We are done with that, we'll be able to go back to the documentary. But at this point, I would like to introduce our moderator for the first plenary in the person of Idris Samaila Inyam, the Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Business, Innovation, and Technology. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, DCFR, Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Mal Nasir Ahmed El Rufai, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Balarva Sabwa Balarabi, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. One of the high points of the Kadinvest Summit is the plenary sessions, and it's my singular honor to welcome you to this plenary with the topic, Domesticating Industry 4.0. the world has witnessed at least 3 different industrial ages. The first age witnessed the transition from hand production methods to mechanized processes, which saw the development of machines and mechanized processes. This commenced around the 1760s. The second industrial revolution was around the 1880s and witnessed the transition to mass production, electricity, etc. The third revolution witnessed the transition to IT automation. This started around the 1980s. We are now witnessing a move to the fourth industrial revolution, which will witness the era of grand cyber systems and complex merger of humans and machines, artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI, robotics, and Internet of Things, IoT. Basically, a fusion of technologies, and it appears that Africa is almost left behind in the scheme of things. With the current exposure and access that Africa, Nigeria, and in particular Kaduna has, how do we catch up with the rest of the world? What are the challenges? What are the implications for our economy and for the idea of work? What should we begin to do as part of our preparedness? How do we position ourselves to benefit from the opportunities that the fourth industrial revolution brings? To answer these questions and more, we are delighted to have you all on our panel. Our first panelist should have been Mr. Eso Phillips, an agricultural industrialist and biotechnologist who was trained at the University of Ottawa, Canada. He's currently the CEO of Wuba Integrated Farms Limited, a Kaduna-based agro-business that focuses on integrated poultry linkages, including breeder farms, hatchery, broiler farms, abattoir, and feed mill. He is the founder of Ronax Invest, a Cameroonian-based company involved in large-scale animal production. He also consults with other multinationals on agricultural and forestry sector, as well as public works services, such as land clearing and road maintenance for heavy machinery, quality control deforestation, and earthworks for the construction of hydroelectric dams. Unfortunately, he's not with us this morning. Apparently, some technology challenges too. He's currently in Cameroon. He was supposed to join us from there. But we have a colleague of his who works very closely with him, Ms. Glory Nneka Ukwenga, who will be joining us on this session. The next panelist I'd like to introduce Dr. E.O.A. Damisa. Dr. Damisa is the immediate past president of the Nigerian Society of Mining Engineers and a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Mining Engineers. He has taught mining, mineral processing, and other allied courses in Kaduna Polytechnic, the University of Jos, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and the Nigerian Institute of Mining and Geosciences in Jos. He was the pioneer director of training and later the acting provost of NIMG. Dr. Ebenezer O. Aliu Damisa is a graduate of mining engineering from Camborne School of Mines in the UK. His current interests and research activities include eco-friendly beneficiation technology for artisanal gold processing and the formalization of artisanal miners into small and large-scale enterprises. The next panelist we're going to be having with us is Dr. Kashim Bukar Shatima. He is the chairman and CEO of Barbados Group of Companies, which have vested interest in aviation, agriculture, oil and gas, and automobile sectors. One of his businesses includes the popular Barbados Motors Limited. Dr. Kashim is an experienced board member with over 20 years tenure. He currently sits on the board of companies in agric, energy, and automobile industries. He's also a recipient of both local and international awards, including an honorary doctorate degree from Commonwealth University, Belize, United Arab Emirates. He's married with 5 children. The next panelist, Engineer Ahmed Rufai Zakari, the Special Advisor to the President on Infrastructure and serves as Secretary to the President Power Reform Coordination Working Group. Before that, he worked at General Electric, GE, where he acquired extensive experience in the electricity and oil and gas sectors. Engineer Ahmed was the COO of GE Nigeria with added responsibility as an executive director of GE's power business in SSA. He was responsible for the company's gas power business in Nigeria and South Africa, with over 150 turbines and up to 8 gigawatts of installed capacity. Prior to this, he was the executive director and audit manager of Sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East division of GE Corporate. Ahmed has degrees in electrical engineering and economics. He's actively nominated. Okay. We next have Professor H.D. Ibrahim. Professor H.D. Ibrahim earned a bachelor's and master's degree in textile technology from ABU and a doctorate degree from Leeds University in the UK. After years of experience, he left the university as a lecturer to join the Raw Materials Research and Development Council, where he became Director General in 2014. He has served on several committees, both at ABU and the Raw Materials Institute, and won several awards and prizes. At IMRDC, he made significant impact that led to, amongst other things, the creation of the Mantra Kilishi, modern Kilishi processing plant based on indigenous technology approved by NAFDAC in 2017. Professor Ibrahim is a fellow of over 20 professional bodies and has over 122 publications and has 2 patents. He's happily married with 5 children. Question and answer sessions between agriculture. So, Glory, Kaduna is looking to transform her vast agrarian society to a nationally dominant industrial hub that can compete globally. How do you advise the Kaduna State government to go about this? Given the efficiency of adopting technology for large-scale agricultural production, what areas do you think most pressingly needs investment interventions of this nature? This is coming from your experience in the agri space. You would have 5 minutes to be able to respond to this, please. Glory.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd really like to apologize once again for the technological challenges that have impacted on the capacity of my boss participating at this forum. I also want to appreciate the Kaduna State government for putting this in place, the opportunity for people to engage on issues of industrialization and innovative practices that can standardize processes for development and investment in Kaduna State. I want to say that the government is actually on track. A forum like this gives us a lot of leverage for foreign direct investments, such as my boss is trying to bring on to bear in country. And one of the things that we noticed in the process of kicking off the business in Kaduna State is that some facets of the Kaduna State Development Plan are also reaching us, and then we're also being able to study, participate actively in that process. We hope that issues such as security would not be
Next question.
would be nipped in the bud such that they do not discourage foreigners who are trying to come from the outer space, because the recent narrative regarding the challenges in southern Kaduna caused a lot of anxiety for the partners to the Ruba Integrated Farm as regards issues of housing, accommodation, where it is that we even were negotiating to site our farm. And accessibility of machineries too has been a challenge. We have not been able to fully establish clear relationships with the government on this aspect. We've been working on it on our own, but we hope that we can find a future scenario where it's easier. Then the accessibility of loans. Normally we're trying to raise some funding. The partners have been working working with their own on their strategic level to raise resources to kick off the business. But it will help us more if we can be aware of indigenous initiatives that can actually support, that is meant to support people willing to come in, especially those ones from fellow African countries, because this particular business, Buba, has a parent company, Kadinvest, which is based in Cameroon. And Cameroon is a country that looks up to Nigeria with respect to development and infrastructure. It will be a better narrative for them to see that things are actually easier and things are better to access in the Nigerian space. That said, there should be a lot of programs that would actually cause a pull factor for more population, to become based in Kaduna. Because we have been trying to cite a poultry farm that, faces the integrated linkages, the forward and backward linkages, vis-a-vis the production of the feed mill, the hatchery, and also even apart from the production of the eggs and taking care of the rearing of the chickens, we're still also looking at even processing those meat to try and increase the protein consumption and availability for children, mothers, and households in Nigeria. A lot of people have asked the question, why Kaduna State? And then we have always answered that we find that Kaduna is a state where the government has been deliberately trying to push for more and more foreign investments to come in. But the challenge of the accessibility to markets, we're facing a reality where the people who are actually going to consume more of our goods, we have to be linking with Abuja, with Niger State and the other neighboring states. And why this is a good narrative for Kaduna, because it means that confidence to know that train and all that is, transportation and all. But the question is, how do we send up eggs in thousands, to other neighboring states? It would also be nice to know that drive of, not quite standard from our market research, and that has been raising some concerns.
Thank you very much. You talked about specialists in mining. Kaduna State has created the Kaduna Mining Development Company. From your experience over the years, what more do you think the government should be doing to attract investors in this sector? In your opinion, what part of the mining and quarrying value chain would need investment interventions for large-scale farming? If you could take this in 2 minutes.
Mr. Moderator, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. If you can hear me. First of all, I'd like to thank the Governor, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, fellow Nigerian Society of Mining Engineers. My name is Ebenezer Damisa, the immediate past president of Nigerian Society of Mining Engineers. And for me, it's a big honor to be on the panel this morning. As we all know, nickel, iron ore, tin ore, gemstones, graphite, dimensions, to name a few. And I'd like to commend the governor for all that he has done for the mining industry, especially with the creation of Kaduna Mining Company and an iron ore processing or steel processing factory between Kaduna and Abuja. This is very well done, and we think that with all this, Kaduna State is well on the way to what we call a revolution in the market. If oil is on its way out, then I can tell you that solid minerals or mining is on its way in. And I urge Kaduna State government to pay greater attention to solid minerals development. One, it has started doing that by the creation of Kaduna Mining Company. And all it has to do now is to focus on certain minerals that we think will bring rapid industrialization to Kaduna State. One of the pillars of this Kaduna Invest is innovation. We are in a world that is rapidly innovating. And what are the ingredients of innovation? They are minerals, especially what we call new minerals that are being used. For instance, we have, in the future very soon, we are going to have electric vehicles. And what we are going to be focusing on will be what will be used primarily for electric vehicles, batteries. And what can be used to produce batteries? These batteries are minerals, certain minerals such as lithium, graphite, and cobalt. Kaduna State is well endowed with graphite around Greenwari area. And I want the government to please encourage investors to look at the gold deposit. Kaduna State has one of the largest gold deposits in Nigeria. But in addition to that, occurring with gold around Greenwari area is some graphite. And we can encourage investors to look at this so that we can, Kaduna State people can invest in it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Damisa. I'll have to just stop here briefly. We'll come back to you again later. Dr. Kashim Booker, online. Dr. Kashim, what policies or initiatives or other fiscal policies can the government, especially Kaduna State, implement to continue to create an enabling environment for the new and existing investors in the automobile industry? As you're aware, you're coming from that sector, you're coming with a wide experience from that area, and His Excellency has also mentioned our investments with Dangote. How would you advise to move on with this? Then with an import-driven automobile industry, what are strategies to reverse this trend, and what roles can cadres like you play in actualizing the adoption of locally produced automobiles in Nigeria? Dr. Kashim Booker.
Thank you very much, moderator.
Okay, it appears we lost Dr. Kashim Booker.
No, I'm here. I can hear you.
Is he back?
Yeah, I can hear you.
He's not back.
Can you hear me?
Engineer Ahmed Rufai Zakari. Okay, very quickly, in your opinion, how can Kaduna State government provide support for potential investors interested in renewable energy in the state? How can Kaduna State government provide support? How do you see them providing support for potential investors interested in renewable energy in the state, which is an area that we're actually driving for? Engineer Zakari.
Yes. Moderator, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Bernard?
Okay, very good.
Okay.
I think in regards to renewable energy in this state,
I don't know why.
Be a leader.
I don't know why they cannot. But they can hear me.
Moderator, I can hear, okay. Let me proceed. I think as we think about renewable energy and the linkage to this concept of a fourth industrial revolution, renewable energy is going to be one of the main thrusts in terms of how we think about our future economies. Just recently, a report came out that 60% of new power. When we look at where we are in Nigeria, we actually have no on-grid scaled up renewable energy from a solar or wind perspective. And I think with the strides that the Kaduna if you think about it, in Nigeria today we have almost 80 million people without access to electricity, and the only way we're going to economically electrify them is through off-grid rural solutions, through solar home systems and mini grids. As you can see, Kaduna already has Blue Camel, which is a leader in the off-grid space, set up in state from a manufacturing perspective. And what you're going to see is that we're also looking at how do you take places like Kaswa Magani off-grid as well, and also look into many of the areas outside of the urban settlements to provide low-cost solar solutions to be able to electrify that population. I'm glad to announce that the 140 billion naira fund for the 5 million solar connections that the federal government is working on through the economic sustainability plan is active, and we're very excited with the opportunities that can be brought before with a very innovative the manufacturing and infrastructure. And Kaduna State, as it is a leader, is already thinking ahead of the curve with both aspects coming to the fore.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Engineer Zachary.
Moderator.
Thank you very much. Professor Hifti Ibrahim, the textile and raw material sector specialist. As you're aware, Kaduna State has some old. How do you suppose, or how do you propose we tell space? Professor Ibrahim. Ibrahim. Is Professor Ibrahim still online?
Yes, please. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Am I speaking with Professor Ibrahim?
Hello. I'm speaking to Mrs. Tanko, who is representing.
Please go ahead.
My name is Mrs. Tanko. I'm Director of Investment and Consultancy. I'm representing Professor Hussein Igoko Ibrahim, who is supposed to have been with you up until the last 20 minutes. Can I have the question again, please?
How would you suppose or propose we move towards achieving Industry 4.0 standards in the textile space?
Thank you very much. As we all know, textile space is a space that employs a lot of hands. Utilization of Internet of Things will support in industrialization. But before we can be able to achieve that, there are other issues that need to be addressed. The Raw Material Research and Development conducted a survey, and some issues came to the fore. Apart from infrastructure, there is deficiency of the right quality of seed for the farmers to produce the needed cotton. Our farmers are not organized into a cooperative model so that we can have sustainability even when we have them farming. Also, the absence of off-takers contributed to the decline in production of the textile sector. So utilization of Internet of Things will support because you can electronically cluster our farmers, ensure that we have the data needed for the production of secondary raw material, that's production of yarn, which is now the primary raw material in the production of textile. So in graduating to Industry 4.0, we must ensure that we have a very good data bank of our farmers, and then the industries that will do the uptaking, so that we can be able to know the requirement for the larger industry.
Thank you very much. Might Kashim Booker be back now?
Yes, I'm back.
Welcome back, Dr. Kashim Booker. I think we have to go through this very quickly before technology takes this. Government can take up, to create an enable environment for new and existing investors in the automobile, in guiding government to take up, to create a more
automobile kill that mortgage of the automobile. When government tried, was not ready for that. Complete assembled plan trim on the automobile, because to hear His Excellency, the governor, automobile are going to create another assembled over by another investor, foreign investor, who are going to do the automobile. But our critical thing here, the critical part here in all this is, how do you get the CKDs in? We have challenges of roads, because what are you trying to create? You are trying to create a chip in a car are being imported through the borders because of getting cheap cars. Now, normally in any country, on this, to achieve this, I think first to get the investors, give them an enabling environment, which is very, very critical. One of our critical aspects that I experienced in the past is human capital. We need to get to orientate our people properly, whereby to train them local human capital. You knew that. You know the foreigners, but for how long? We must have local indigenous trained Nigerians, and that is one challenge I see in our country today, because we've left that part of it, and we're thinking more of the investment. And I think what we should try and do is create free. I mean, they get their investment, not what was created before, because the auto policy that was created before was created based on, for me personally, as in see that I labor, including creating jobs. I mean, creating jobs opportunity, and showing, displaying their investment properly, putting the structures for us, and the government will give them. That is what I think we should
adjust your camera. I'll get back to you in a moment. Is it being seen now? Shh. Can you see me now? Okay. Back to representative of Mr. Esso Phillips. Mrs. Glory, right? If I'm right. What do you think is the role of both government? How would you advise government and private sector come together to partner to ensure that agri stakeholders capture as much value from the chain as possible? Madam Glory, you have a minute to do that, and maybe
a lot of because there are more responsibility in preparing the smallholder farmers.
Okay.
Can you hear me, please? We want to see government taking more responsibility in preparing smallholder farmers, so that they can actually produce, especially those ones in the basic sectors that constitute a feeder industry for people like us in the higher end of the value chain, which is the poultry sector. In their states, by other organizations or farms in the higher end of it. We want to see that government works with them, tries to encourage them, tries to put in place a lot of policies that bring them into this space and helps to cluster them to their raw materials for our production. And then if the government can also assist us with media collaborations to put our information out there regarding.
Thank you very much. That was Ms. Glory, PRO to. If you can hear me, case study. If you could use this very quickly and also
South Africa is well known as Nigeria is an emerging country, is to formalize
It appears we lost Dr. Damisa. Dr. Damisa?
artisanal miners are informal to provide incentives to them of larger enterprises in mining, Nigwari area or Kubao area, to organize themselves to buy mining equipment, which usually are very capital incentives, intensive, and then we'll begin to have greater benefits from the mining sector, like South Africa.
Sir. Engineer Ahmed Zakari. What might be your opinion with IPPs, independent power plants, as how can investors increase be fully implemented?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. I think I'll take the first question on IPPs. We've continued to see that only relying on an integrated national grid model where the federal government does things as quickly as we need them. And investors seeking a soft guarantee from the federal government and not looking at what the offtake is. And then we certainly have challenges given some of our infrastructure gaps. What I'm seeing more and more, it's happened in Edo with Oshomo Power. The Kaduna State government is also looking at how to partner with different groups to really create a model where seeing what do we need to augment what the federal government is doing, perhaps through additional credit enhancement, as well as partnering to make sure that the innovation, as they're looking at with Kudenda, as well as some of the innovative models to resolve this long-standing issue with the solar IPPs that are littered across the north that will present probably a $1.2 billion investment in Nigeria. I think if the Kaduna State government can figure it out and state partnering with federal, working with the Kaduna State government to see a model for on-grid power from a renewable and solar standpoint, as well as resolving the challenges we've had in Kudenda and Urara. Now, when we think about what is our current situation in the market, His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna, we borrow him once every 2 weeks to help us in the power sector reform coordination working group. And one of the willing buyer, willing seller, as well as the service-based tariff that was recently announced by the federal government is really intended to say that a person who in Metama is getting 20 hours a day of power should not be paying the same price as somebody maybe in a local government in Kaduna, in Rugasa, that may be getting a lower amount of power. Until the distribution companies improve that supply, then they can charge. So this model of service-based tariff is intended to liberalize the tariff model, but also ensure that the distribution companies have to perform to be able to charge higher tariffs. And it also opens up the view for franchising. Kaduna is a leader with the Connexa Kaduna Disco model, but also opens up opportunities, as I said, for more mini grids and other investment that will break the monopoly. I think some of the work that the Kaduna Power Supply Company is doing with investors will definitely lead to additional developments. But we're very optimistic, and we hope by the time we come back, Kadinvest 6.0, between on-grid renewable progress and the off-grid options with the Rural Electrification Agency, and perhaps Kaduna leading the charge on the 5 million connections program through the economics of the utility plan. We'll have a large segment that His Excellency can come and communicate to investors.
Okay. Engineer Zachary, sorry I had to cut in. We're very short for time, and we're trying to manage this. We're trying very hard to manage this. Professor Ibrahim, or Representative Professor Ibrahim, given that the fashion is an industry worth about $2.3 trillion, and you think of success of most of the designers you hear of these days, how do you think the textile industry can tap into that fashion industry in Nigeria? Or how can you bring about that synergy for it to be able to grow more than what we have right now in Kaduna? Textile raw materials. Okay. Probably isn't here. We lost her. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Please go ahead.
Okay. I must say, in the textile industry, value addition is very key. Our study has established that the value of cotton, when processed, after ginning, the value improves by 15%. When you spin it, the value improves by 100%. When you produce great fabric, the value improves by 160%. And for the finished product, you have 300% increment, while when you make garment, you have 780% increment. So key into the fashion industry will generate a lot of employment and put money in the pockets of families. However, the sad news is a lot of these things are imported. The opportunities are abound for materials in the fashion industry sector. If you take thread, for example, the annual demand for thread in Nigeria is 1.7 billion meters. And we have potential to be able to produce 95%. However, when you look at the migration of cotton farmers to other crops that give their yield money, we have lost some of that value. Press buttons, sleeve lining, trampoline, cut lining, needles, hook and eye, wadding, gum stay, they are all imported into this country 100%. It's only in zip partners that we have 80% imported, that is, we are able to produce 20%. And fabric, most of the fabric that is in use now is 100% imported. Bottoms 90%, buckles 60%, shoulder pads 40%, leg trimmings 100% imported, bias 100%, embroidered thread 60%, eyelets 100%, elastics 80% imported, ribbons 100% imported.
Thank you very much, madam. I'm sure we know now from the value chain there's a lot to be done. There are lots of opportunities there that need to be tested. Back to Dr. Kashim Booker. You have had a very enterprising career path, from energy, round to agribusiness, aviation, and automobile. In all these, what can you say are the two major challenges you face that, if sorted out properly, would have made things easier, and the way government what government should face going forward to make the business terrain smoother for investors?
Thank you, moderator.
Dr. Kashim?
The biggest, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Moderator, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Moderator, the biggest challenges today for our businesses in all these fields you've mentioned, first is a security challenge, that's one. Human capital challenge, that's two. And access to credit, that's three. In all business, no matter how much business you want to grow, you must need credit. Unfortunately, environment that we live here today, and most especially Kaduna, not too many bankers will ask you, they will give you credit. We've seen that many years back. The security challenge, you have partners as investors that will come and invest with you, have an issue of security coming in here. It's one of our biggest challenge. And that is what I face in my industry. All the industries you mentioned, I participate in. Thirdly, the human capital. It's a big challenge for us. I don't know about the other part of these countries, but here that I am, as much as you train Nigerians, you give them all the opportunities in and outside this country, rather than they develop their career, they just use you and get what they want, and then they dump you. And these are the challenges I face in all these industries. Sometimes you wonder whether you get encouraged to train more Nigerians. I'm a Nigerian. I love my country. I have no any other country to go but this country. Kaduna, I was born and bred here, and that's why I put all my investments in Kaduna. I still believe in Kaduna, and that's why I walk along with ideas and the innovations His Excellency is trying to create. Of course, I can see, we can now see the light at the end of the tunnel. Infrastructures, as you've heard His Excellency mention, since the 60s, that was when last you saw good infrastructure in Kaduna. Now we're on the way. Well, the major thing that I will ask His Excellency to embark with today is the security challenge. Every business partner I try to bring to this country, most especially Kaduna, the first thing they tell me is the security challenge. And I think we need to look into that critically. That is our challenges here. But I think if these are eliminated, limit for us. I believe in this state, and I continue to believe in the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one or two questions from viewers or participants, which I'm going to try and read out. So any of the panelists will want to take that on. We have from James Awoni. How does the North take advantage in the renewable energy sector to solve the unemployment challenges in our urban, poor, and rural areas through agriculture? How does the North take advantage in the renewable energy sector in solving the unemployment challenges in our urban, poor, and rural areas through agriculture?
Okay, moderator, perhaps I can attempt that one, at least on the renewable side. What I would say is the fund that was approved through the Economic Sustainability Plan is quite large. It's 140 billion naira, and what it's intended to do is if a company goes through the Rural Electrification Agency and CBN, they can access funds across the renewable value chain. They can access manufacturing loans. So companies like Pukaka and Kaduna will have the ability to access those funds to expand and create jobs. There's a mini grid fund for developers. If you need financing to build a mini grid in a local government or a rural area, you can do that at 5% interest. And then there's a retail fund, which is up to 500 million naira for developers that want to go to rural areas and install solar home systems. We believe that will bring installation jobs as well as improve the economies in those areas. And that's a public document. The federal government will be working with the state governments to expand that, but we anticipate that will create about more than 200,000 jobs. And really, it's focused on local enterprise and industry. This really should go a long way to boosting northern prospects as we look at the renewable area. And I would encourage investors that are here today to really look into that fund and partner with the federal and state government to access it so we can accelerate outcomes.
That's all? Well, so we've had a lot of responses to the various, from those that the members of the parliaments, the panelists and others. The issue of security has come up, access to facilities, access to finance, access to market. Issues to do with, as challenges, we've addressed issues to do with renewable energy. We've talked about off-grid solar solutions and mini-grids to handle the issues of power. Yet again, we've also been advised on availability or windows that are available with the federal government's economic sustainability plan. It's to do with improving or growing our cotton production, the various value chains you could tap from. Issues to do with licensing, proper license for buying agents. Even the putting together or pooling together of a data bank for farmers. But most interestingly was the area to deal with solid minerals. Bindingo area has reverberated quite a few times. The issue about formalizing artisanal mining and stuff like that. So what's come for is Kaduna State generally heading in the right direction, and there's also the need for investors to actually come in and invest. Opportunities avail. There are lots of windows. Just come in, because Kaduna is your investment destination of choice. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us for this plenary session, and we do look forward to welcoming other investors, also partnering with current investors to grow themselves and Kaduna as a whole. Thank you very much. Am I still on or off?
Ranches Global Resources Limited is a leading Nigerian company offering integrated construction and traffic solutions, related services, and procurement. We specialize in executing complex works that require the highest levels of technical expertise and excel in the implementation of state-of-the-art construction methods and technologies. Core competencies cover all project phases, including road construction, private, commercial, and municipal buildings construction, clear-view fence and perimeter fence construction, mechanized road marking, design and installation of road signs, and installation of intelligent traffic data, transport systems, and lights. Our quality management systems are well equipped to consistently meet clients' needs, and that quality is continuously improved. Combined with our collaborative approach, our drive towards innovation, expansive experience, and resources underpin project success. With a proven record of delivering quality results on time, we stand out as a choice partner. Ronchest Global Resources Limited was founded in 2008 by Jackson Ukwevo, who is the managing director and has pioneered the company to completing numerous construction and road marking projects across Nigeria, with the mission to be a socially responsible, one-stop firm for research-based development, innovation, and for the delivery of relevant, cost-effective solutions uniquely designed to meet all our clients' needs using international standards.
In an ever-changing world, the job of transformation must be taken head-on. We believe the change we seek will come. Than 617 residents have been gainfully employed in different capacities across the state. We have exceeded the revenue target of the Kaduna State Economic Development Plan for the retail sector through direct investments of 18.6 billion naira from the private sector to finance 25 infrastructure projects across the state. We have resolved that through the creation of an enabling business environment, we can reinforce the entrepreneurial spirit of our people and inspire in us a culture of excellence. Our resolve is to modernize our existing facilities using competent and quality-driven contractors and developers who ensure that health and safety guidelines are adhered to and goals are reached in a timely manner. At KMDMC, we are committed to serving the people of our state by creating the right environment to prosper and thrive. In pursuit of our mandate, we have embarked on numerous projects across the state, most notable of which are the Galaxy Mall. The mall will be the first of its kind in Kaduna, providing world-class infrastructure to the deserving people of Kaduna and a desirable location for globally recognized brands to serve our people. The new Kawo Market located in Kaduna will consist of 2,700 shops and is expected to be completed in 18 months at a cost of 2.94 billion naira. The Kasuan Sabongari Market located in Zaria, which will consist of 3,338 shops. This project is expected to be completed in 18 months at a cost of 2.66 billion naira. The Kasuan Magani Market located in Kajuru, which will consist of 2,024 shops. The construction of the new market is expected to be completed in the last quarter of 2020. The sale of shops at the Sheikh Abubakar Mahmoud Gumi Market will ensure the transfer of Chen. We are remodeling Motala Square into a world-class sporting and hospitality center. The square will consist of an Olympic-sized swimming pool, renovated central pavilion, a new clubhouse, and a boutique hotel, amongst other facilities. KMDMC is changing the way business is done in Kaduna. It is modernizing the way markets operate and giving a much-needed facelift to the commercial sector. With continued support from the government and residents of Kaduna, the final outcome is sure to establish Kaduna State as one of the top destinations for commerce in Africa. For more information, kindly visit our website at www.kadunamarkets.com.
Hello? But I can't hear anything. No, I can't hear. So how am I going to hear them? Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that's why I was saying you should test my microphone. What's this thing called? Okay.
All right, thank you very much to Idris Samaila Iyam, the Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Business, Innovation, and Technology. He chaired the plenary session with the theme Domesticating Industry. All right, at this time, first and foremost, please allow me to apologize. Technology, we're doing this, like I said, for the first time, a summit being held virtually. So, of course, we've had some hitches, but as we speak, everything is being worked on. We have another plenary session that is coming up right away that has the topic Accelerating Infrastructure Development in a Post-COVID Era. All right, so at this point, please do allow me to welcome Balaraba Aliyu Inua. She is Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Public Works and Infrastructure. We're going to have a short documentary just like we did the last time, and that is going to morph into a plenary session that will be chaired by Balaraba Inua. Stay with us.
Have revealed that in the next few decades, close to 60 or 70% of all population will be located at the city centers. Kaduna State is already feeling the impact of this analogy, as the state capital, Kaduna, for instance, was originally designed to accommodate between 600,000 and 700,000 people. Today, the population of Kaduna town stands at over 3 million people, and the influx is continual. The resultant effect of this on existing infrastructure and strain on investments is obvious.
You can't have an investor coming into the city without having the city being properly named, being your reference, have it on the Google that you can log onto the number, the house you want to go, or the business location you want to go, navigate through your Google Maps and locate yourself. And also, an investor would like to come into Kaduna to see a serene city, a planned city, a quiet city, a functional city, and a city whereby you can't see activity haphazardly going on. No any investor would want to come into the city and end up having hold-ups, end up having his time being wasted on the junctions or on the traffic or whatever.
It is of little wonder then that the Kaduna State government, in its foresight, embarked on a rigorous urban renewal project aimed at not only matching public infrastructure with the ever-increasing population of the state, but also to upgrade the state to world-class standards, where investments can thrive seamlessly. Today, that goal has been achieved. New roads, markets, bridges, parks are being built or upgraded, transforming Kaduna into a true investor's heaven.
It's really something that is huge and comprehensive, and it's beyond just road networks. It's beyond just bridges. The urban renewal covers issues of, for example, urban public transportation. Beyond that, we have issues of parks. I mean, we have a very beautiful park coming up right in front of Government House, the Centenary Park. But we also plan to have parks spread across the city so that people don't have to come to one location if they want to recreate with their families and the rest.
What we're doing for all commercial hubs in Kaduna is for those that currently exist, we are upgrading them and remodeling them and fitting them with modern facilities that we hope at the end of the day will encourage more visitors to these facilities. And once that happens, it means that the traders will be able to have more money because more people are coming to spend their money in these markets.
No doubt, the current outlook of Kaduna State offers new opportunities for investment, and the state government's commitment towards having a private sector-driven economy in the state remains unchanged.
Well, I mean, for everybody that's been to Kadinvest last year, just a year ago, I mean, if you've come in today to attend this Kadinvest, you can see that the city is clearly changing. We're investing a huge amount of public resources. We're putting our money where our mouth is and making changes. I mean, look at Murtala Square today. It's undergoing the biggest change that it has seen in decades. And we're continuing to do this. We are putting public sector money for the public good. What we're doing is to invite the private sector to say, come in and put your own resources. We're not saying put it for the public, but there will be a profit or motive to it, but we want the city to develop. We want our young people to have jobs, and so we will provide all our support, all the incentives that are required for responsible and capable business men and women to come in and put in their money in Kaduna State. As I mentioned, there's a huge investment portfolio that's open: hotels, parks, markets, shopping malls, all of that, and even things that we don't think about as government. If you see the opportunity to come and talk to us, Kadipa is there. We're all available and accessible to be able to support businesses to thrive in Kaduna State.
All right. His Excellency General Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Dr. Hadiza Sabwa Balarabe, and other excellencies that are here with us, members of Kaduna State Executive Council, special invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and our viewers at home, welcome to the panel on infrastructure development. As the anchor mentioned earlier on, the theme for this panel is accelerating infrastructure development in a post-COVID-19 era. For me, infrastructure is about people. It's about the end user. It's about governments becoming competitive by providing appropriate, equitable, and sustainable infrastructure that supports service delivery. I am, of course, talking about key sectors such as water and sanitation, access to markets, transportation, security, power, and all others that allow citizens achieve productivity. Research shows that a 10% increase in infrastructure provision can be directly correlated to a 1% increase in outputs, which I think is quite impressive. As we all know, however, infrastructure is notoriously difficult to get right. It is capital intensive, it requires time, capacities, technologies, and inputs from a wide gamut of stakeholders. It's a game that involves everybody, and it cannot be done in a hurry. But it is the targeting and filling of infrastructure deficits that is hugely challenging. The World Bank estimates that developing countries like Nigeria need to invest around 4.5% of their GDP in order to achieve the infrastructure-related sustainable development goals at the SDGs by 2030. Our own Minister of Finance recently stated that Nigeria needs an estimated 36 trillion naira annually for the next 30 years in order to fill Nigeria's infrastructure deficit. With all of these problems, COVID-19 and the global outbreak of COVID-19 has brought its own dimension of challenges to infrastructure development globally. Not only the economic downturn, which I'm sure everybody has experienced in one way or another. I am, of course, talking about livelihoods, about shrinking budgets, downward reviews to national budgets, for which we are no stranger to. We've had the same experience here in Nigeria. His Excellency made mention of this in his opening remarks earlier on. And not only that, but also the complex and global nature of the construction industry's supply chain and workforce have impacted heavily on the costs of infrastructure, and on the scheduling of infrastructure worldwide. So in this session, we will look at how governments can accelerate infrastructure development in the post-COVID-19 era. Recall that this is an era that nobody could have anticipated, and it's a first in terms of global dynamics. We will discuss policy frameworks, innovative financing, renewable assets, the experience of some key players in the industry, and solutions to these prevailing challenges. As His Excellency mentioned in his opening remarks, which was very, very informative, here in Kaduna we have invested heavily in infrastructure. We have had to leverage on key and innovative partnerships with the private sector. We've had to tap into international finance, different and innovative instruments that have helped us. And we've also bolstered and reinforced our institutional framework. His Excellency made mention of the innovative policy councils. The Infrastructure Development Council has greatly helped our coordination of infrastructure projects, and it is one that I'm proud to be a member of, and to espouse the results that have come from that. So without any further ado, let me introduce our illustrious panelists. I'm glad to see that so many of them were able to make it. Our panelists are very, very keen to share their insights and knowledge on this, so I trust that this will be a very interesting panel discussion. I'd like to start with Mr. Uche Oji, who is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. Uche is the first CEO of NSIA, having been reappointed by the President of Nigeria for another 5-year term in 2017. Uche has a wealth of global experience in international finance and banking. Welcome, Uche. Next, we have Ahmed Salihijo Ahmed, who is the Managing Director of the Rural Electrification Agency, REA. Ahmed is very, very keenly interested in sustainable energy and renewable assets and energy. He also has vast experience in the energy sector and an area that is particularly dear to my heart, rural electrification. So Ahmed, you are welcome as well. Oh, by the way, Ahmed actually coordinated the Africa's first green bond, the issuance of Africa's first sovereign green bond valued at over 10 billion NGN. So he is no stranger to international finance. Next, I will introduce, we're missing one of our panelists. But I will introduce Mr. Jackson Ukwevo next, who is the Managing Director of Ronchest Global Resources Limited. We, if I'm not mistaken, just saw a very interesting clip about the wonderful work that Ronchest is doing. Ronchest is a leading road construction and traffic solutions company. He also has international experience in road infrastructure, including bridges and culverts. And his company has grown from only him to over 100 employees from different parts of the country. So you are welcome, Jackson, and we hope to hear a lot from you as well. And then we have Mr. Uyi Akpata, who is the Regional Senior Partner West Africa of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Mr. Akpata has been a partner at PwC for over 26 years. And he is a powerhouse in strategy and operations advisory services, having given financial and technical advice to many governments and companies across the world over. You are welcome, Uyi. And finally, I am very pleased to introduce the only woman on my panel. Halima Abba is the Senior Investment Associate of the Africa Finance Corporation. Halima has over 10 years experience in international development financing and investing, and she's worked in the social sector, private sector, and initiated many private sector partnerships. With a focus on power, transport and logistics, and heavy industry, she has appraised and executed transactions in excess of $17 billion and $1 billion, respectively, in infrastructure projects across the African continent. You'll notice I spent more time on her. We're very proud of you, Halima, and you are welcome to this panel. So, having introduced all our panelists, I would, as I promised them, I will give each of the panelists 2 minutes to give an intro on their take on the subject matter, following which we'll have a more detailed discussion. So I believe we'll start with you, Uche.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Uche.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me start by congratulating His Excellency Dr. Nasser El-Rufai and his cabinet for continuing with the Kadinvest program, regardless of the challenges we're facing in today's world. And I want to thank everybody who's part of this panel and the opportunity to speak on the topic of accelerating infrastructure development in the post-COVID era. I would say that the following things, and I'll probably speak to one of the questions that was already pre-asked about how states can compete for international development finance, because this all leads into what you need to do to accelerate infrastructure development. The first challenge is that in today's world, we are facing a synchronized global economic slowdown. There are still pools of capital, and there are still ways to access them. But we must also face the fact that when you have significant GDP declines in Europe and the United States, in most of Africa, there is significant competition for capital for accelerating infrastructure development. At the same time, it's an opportunity to still address infrastructure needs because people will emerge from this crisis, and when they emerge from this crisis, capital and investment opportunities will go to places where it is best welcome and where it is best prepared for. And to that, I will speak to 3 or 4 things. First of all, the easy stuff can still be done. The stuff that depends on local financing can still be attacked. And be it roads, be it some of the stuff being done in housing, or what is being done like in the marketplace and shopping centers, most of that is still locally financeable. And I think governments should take advantage of mobilizing local capital to address areas where infrastructure needs are highly dependent on local sources of capital. I will also speak to the partnerships, and quite frankly, most of the things I'm going to speak to are the things Kaduna State is doing, and from my observation, more than many other states, and for that, everybody in this cabinet and the governor should be very proud and should be congratulated. The partnership that will have to ensue with private sector investors. Now, that area is really challenged now because most private sector investors have been absolutely hit by what is going on in the global economy. But here's an opportunity. An opportunity is one of the big ones, one of the big multinationals who still have capacity to go on and play roles should be able to partner with you. And I think the impetus of building that infrastructure in this post-COVID era also draws from what was said earlier about the need for industrial development. Ultimately, the recovery for Nigeria and the recovery for most economies will come from not just the benefits we're seeing from things like agriculture, but mainly from industrial development. And for that to happen, you do need infrastructure. You do need infrastructure that actually, quite frankly, works for what investors need. Electricity, you need roads, you need access to water, you need skilled manpower, you need all of those things that are very, very important. And to that extent, I want to speak to one other piece of infrastructure that the states can and should accelerate. Kaduna State, in many ways, and particularly that Zaria area, tends to be a place of learning, from the university to all kinds of institutes that are in that area. I'm very proud of the work that's been done by the governor in investing in education, and I speak to that because when we speak about infrastructure, everyone tends to focus on hard infrastructure. But the social infrastructure, particularly of education, is extremely important. Because if they build the best infrastructure possible, companies might come to Kaduna but the people of Kaduna will only take advantage of it if they're educated and highly equipped to be part of that development. And so, in speaking about hard infrastructure, let us not forget about the social infrastructure needs. Because when I speak to investors about coming into certain places, many things come up. But skilled manpower is one of the most important things that people speak to. Availability of things like hospitals and other social facilities that play a role are also very important. So when we're talking about creating infrastructure development in the post-COVID era, I would just the hard physical infrastructure, which Kaduna State has done a phenomenal piece of work on, and also looked at some of the soft pieces of infrastructure that will be necessary. It is great to be number one in Nigeria and ease of doing business. That's something to be congratulated, and that is something that I think should be built upon. And I think it's also great to be one of the places with the most experienced government operative when it comes to privatization, and being able to use that as a basis to make sure that people are playing a role. And here's where that is very, very important. Many companies that operate in many states actually at the moment have built their own power supply systems. Putting that all together in a manner that contributes to the grid network, even if it's a distributed grid network within the state, is very, very important. These are some of the things we should look inwards into. So let me start by saying, globally, capital is under siege. There's a lot of competition for capital, but there's a tendency to ignore what we have in terms
I apologize to cut you off, Uche. I think you've taken a little bit more than your allotted time. That was a little longer than 2 minutes. I do appreciate your input. Honestly, this is exactly what we wanted to hear. And thank you very much for the compliments to our state government. There'll be more. We'll hear from you again very shortly. But let's give the other participants a chance. And I want to ask the other panelists to please keep their comments brief so that we can all fit ourselves into this short time allotted to us. Thank you so much for your cooperation. So, if I can move now to Halima from the Africa Finance Corporation. If we can get your 2 minutes on your take on the subject matter, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Can you all hear me very clearly? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, great. Thank you for having the AFC at this very important panel, and congratulations also to His Excellency and Kaduna State Governor. I think Mr. Orji has spoken a lot about what many of us are going to point to, so I wouldn't try to repeat what he has said. But I think that what also needs to be buttressed is that there are several opportunities that have resulted as a result of COVID-19, which we should all be very much looking at. As much as it's been a very devastating crisis, there's a lot of opportunities to invest in import substitution, and I'm glad the previous panel that came before us spoke about that. We need to look at agro-processing, manufacturing, and also looking at the enabling infrastructure around that. I think there was also a lot of talk around the mineral resources that are in Kaduna State, but also much of Nigeria. We must also look at how we can point to value addition as well of these primary commodities. It isn't enough to just mine these mineral resources or the oil and gas resources we have, but essentially adding value so that we can also become globally competitive and not necessarily rely on global trade from much of Southeast Asia, for instance. So I think a lot of the focus, I think, in this panel should be looking at how we can provide the enabling infrastructure around that, the ease of doing business. I think is also a critical point that has already been mentioned by Mr. Uche Orji. And it's also just to say from a financier's perspective, such as the AFC, that there are many opportunities. As much as this, competition for capital has been mentioned, we actually are looking forward to providing a lot of capital towards sustainable development of our African continent, not just to Kaduna State. And we do so in a number of sectors. If I may just quickly add, heavy industry, natural resources, and as you mentioned, transport and logistics, telecommunications and power, which are all the very critical sectors that have been mentioned in the previous panel, but also now. We've already deployed nearly $2 billion of capital in Nigeria in over 20 projects, and have done so with 32 countries on the continent. I'm actually very excited to hear about all of the plans that His Excellency, Madam Rufai has mentioned. So, I think that, of course, we also have much to discuss much later on in this panel. Thank you very much.
That's excellent news. We're glad to hear that there's a lot of resources available for the African continent for infrastructure development. So we'll hear more from you after. If I may go now to Uyi, Mr. Uyi Apata. Uyi, would you like to give us your 2-minute take on the subject matter?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner and moderator of this session. Your Excellency, good afternoon and congrats on Kadinvest 5.0. I'm really humbled to be part of this particular section. In October 2019, PwC conducted a survey, a global survey in terms of determining what the shape of the infrastructure space was. And we identified certain global disruptions. First was around the shift in capital availability. Then we talk about evolving social and environmental priorities. And then, of course, rapid urbanization. These were in the minds of top CEOs operating in the infrastructure space, the things that was of concern to them. But like any other thing, in October of 2019, no one foresaw COVID-19. So you can imagine what that has over the overlay of COVID-19. But as we've come to see over time, I mean, COVID-19 has its own disruptions, but I think in a way it's actually accelerating what we would have done earlier. So I want to ultimately, my theme is just to say, let's take advantage of the opportunities that exist when COVID-19, in response to COVID-19. Looking at urbanization, which is a key aspect, I saw that from some of the adverts earlier. We have a situation where, for instance, the urban population is expected to grow by 62% from 3.9 billion today to about 6.3 billion, 3.9 to 6 in 2050. It's very easy sometimes for us to say 30 years down the line, okay, that may not apply to us. But I remember my first time in Kaduna in 1982. So that's almost 30 over that period of time. So how does COVID-19, now how do we accelerate this urbanization that's already at the forefront of what we are doing? And some of the discussions in the earlier subjects have been very, very clear in this respect. I think most of the panelists here are talking about access to finance, and hopefully we'll reduce the funding gap or ability to repay over a period of time. But I think what's, in my view, to just quickly take advantage of my last minute, I think I'm particularly interested in the evolving social and environmental priorities, because what we've seen now is that some of our facilities have stretched, particularly in the health sector, as a result of COVID-19. How do we refocus? How do we redirect ourselves to get priorities? Because that gap will still be there. There's still going to be competition in terms of resources. So I'm glad, and I'm aware of the fact that the Infrastructure Development Council is looking at this. In fact, I was pleasantly surprised that 3 months ago, at the peak of COVID-19, you started doing a real assessment of your portfolio and seeing how you can move in the right direction. In my view, taking advantage of COVID-19, we need to see how we can re-strategize, especially how do we redirect our supply chain to take advantage of local productions and opportunities. That would be a game changer for us in the face of all the things that's currently happening in Kaduna State. That's my opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Uyi. Very interesting stuff. I really appreciate you bringing out the issues that matter: urbanization, the challenges of financing, and the rest. We'll hear more from you afterwards. Now, none of the panelists is yet to mention the issue of rural infrastructure. They were only talking about urban infrastructure, and I'm very sure that our next speaker will have a lot to say about it. So let me invite Ahmed Salihijo to please give us his own 2-minute opening salvo. Thank you, Ahmed.
Honorable Commissioner, congratulating His Excellency and his team
for continuously setting the trend in coming up with Kadinvest 5.0. I'm very proud to say that this is something I'm humbled to be part of. And I'm proud that today I'm sitting alongside my fellow panelists. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Looking at the accelerating infrastructure development in a post-COVID era, what you find is that qualitative and quantitative data-driven infrastructure is very critical to our economic growth, especially developing in a developing nation like Nigeria. Historically, the availability of stable and reliable electricity infrastructure has been a major part in mitigating against capital productivity as well as national development. As some of the speakers have already mentioned, electricity is a very, very crucial part of our development. But of course, they were mentioning it within the urban space with regards to accelerating nationwide access to infrastructure. However, the Rural Electrification Agency has been deploying electricity infrastructure using off-grid technologies to energize unserved and underserved communities across the nation. As the earlier speaker mentioned on the previous panel, we are talking about over 80 million Nigerians that have no access to power. This means that within the Rural Electrification Agency, we need to think of innovative ways to get that power across to them, not only relying upon on-grid technologies, but then we need to talk about off-grid technologies just to complement the traditional on-grid grid extension projects that we currently have. So with these novel renewable energy technologies, they're environmentally friendly. As the moderator mentioned earlier, this is an area where I'm very keen on, given my past experiences. So essentially, we continue to cut down the impact of carbon dioxide emission and also serve as a reliable and sustainable systems to accelerate infrastructure growth in remote communities across Nigeria. This ultimately stimulates productive use and boosts local economies. So in essence, we look beyond taking that electricity to the rural areas. How does the person within that particular setting use that electricity to improve his livelihood or her livelihood in terms of economic living? So the growth path of meeting the SDGs have been disrupted, of course, by the COVID, as some of my fellow panelists have said earlier, which has essentially slowed down project development and other critical interventions across the nation. But I would like to say that within this particular period, the REA was able to take about 4 mini grids to some isolation centers within the country just to help frontline workers. So the outbreak of COVID has also stretched our fragile systems to its limits, which continues to reveal the infrastructure gaps that we have, especially in the emergency, healthcare, and energy, which touches a bit on trying to fill in that gap, especially encouraging private sector participation, as Mr. Oji mentioned earlier, is very critical to encourage private sector to come in and partner with government to be able to now bridge that particular gap. So accelerating the infrastructure in post-COVID era, there must be a renewed sense of urgency as far as the REA is concerned within the design, funding, planning, and implementation of these projects. So there is a need for government to stronger continue to work with other critical stakeholders beyond fast-tracking deployment of funds. Resources must actually be deliberately and strategically targeted to solving short to medium term needs of the populace. So this is the business of the REA, and this is what we seek to accomplish in the deployment and delivery of electrification to homes and businesses in our unserved and underserved areas. So once again, I would like to thank the Kadinvest for giving me this opportunity to share my own perspectives, and I look forward to developing on these conversations as the panel goes along. Thank you.
As expected, I knew you'd shed light on the issue of rural electrification and the infrastructure that needs to take place at the rural level for there to be equitable distribution of infrastructure development, which is important for any economy to thrive. So I will now give the floor to Jackson Ukwevo. Is Jackson with us? Jackson from Ronches Global Resources. If we can have your 2 minutes now, Jackson.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Your Excellency and Her Excellency, for having us and the moderator, Honorable Commissioner, and my fellow panelists. Yes, on the infrastructure industry that we are all here for, and on this Kadinvest 5.0, my take on this is, first and foremost, I want to appreciate His Excellency for the initiative of having to look into the infrastructure of developing Kaduna as a whole, and having to putting all of this together, and the vision that he has to bring back Kaduna, which is like one of the first states in Nigeria back in the days where before I was born, I've heard stories about how Kaduna was being developed then, and having to be a state that you can actually move into other northern part of Nigeria within. So when we came into Kaduna and seeing what Kaduna has in place, having to look at the master plan and the future of Kaduna, we know fully well that this state is a state that has great future for the people. And the infrastructure project, it's also a project that actually you can put it and streamline it to be like the DNA of a state, having to put in good infrastructure projects for your state or your country, wherever it may be. However, looking at this project that has been going on lately and currently in Kaduna, we can see that the future of Kaduna is actually coming up. And this is also going to make and expand a lot of areas in Kaduna that no one has actually seen, and having to put up novel project like this, having to set up good standard city roads, and also coming up with good standard high infrastructure like the bridges that were coming up as well in Zaria and all of those. And looking at the funding for this project, like Mr. Uche said, and Halima also said, in terms of funding project like this, at times, most times because of this post-COVID era that hits everyone in all over the world that no one knew was going to come through, it's our time that local investors and some of the financial institutions that we have, even to the stock market of Nigeria that we have, to start looking how they will start getting local resources to support the government to invest in our local infrastructure development. So that with
there. If I'm not mistaken, we've been joined by Abiodun Otunola. Abiodun, is that you? He's my sixth panelist who I was told who couldn't join. Can you hear me, Abiodun?
Yes, I can, Honorable Commissioner. I can hear you clearly.
You're welcome, Abiodun. Abiodun is the managing director of Planet Projects. Planet Projects is a very successful company that provides a wide range of solutions to transport problems in Nigerian cities across bus, BRT, rail transport, water transportation, traffic engineering, and other things. Abiodun, an engineer himself, is also a powerhouse in the transport industry, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about the transport industry post-COVID. So thank you, Abiodun. The floor is open to you. If you can give us your own input, let's have your 2 minutes on your take on the subject matter. Thank you, Abiodun.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Commissioner. Can you hear me?
You perfectly.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Your Excellency, congratulations on this very historic economic summit. I want to say clearly that Kaduna is on the right path. One is gladdening that one can see a lot of infrastructure work going on all around the city. And some of the videos I've seen did prove to me that yes, there's a plan behind what you're doing. I've seen a lot in terms of road construction. I've seen a lot in terms of flyovers, and I've also gone through a lot of documentation about what the plan is to integrate mass transit and have it integrated urban renewal project that you currently are embarking on. It's also gladdening to know that Kaduna is one of the premier cities in Nigeria, and I dare say that your administration is the one that I've seen across the whole of Nigeria that's putting so much into revamping the entire city. You are not just doing one road or one flyover, you're trying to revamp the entire city. Because most of the infrastructure around these legacy cities like Kaduna, Ibadan, and Co are actually long overdue for renewal. Most of them are over 50 years old. So what you've done and what your administration is doing currently is to completely revamp the infrastructure, not only preparing for today and also for the future. And I think you deserve a lot of kudos in this direction, Your Excellency. But having said that, one of the things I have noticed also is that in terms of infrastructure development, cities tend to be a victim of their own success. And Kaduna is not going to be an exception. I want His Excellency to be prepared for influx of people. Apart from investors, we are going to have a lot of middle class people relocated to Kaduna. You are going to have low class. You are going to have unemployed youth. So the population explosion that is going to be attendant as a consequence of this infrastructure renewal, I think government needs to be prepared for it. And then which will lead me to the issue of public transportation. Yeah, you are going to have a lot of influx and population explosion in the next couple of years. And Kaduna should be ready to take this on. And one of the ways that I think this needs to happen is public transport. A lot has been done in terms of road development, bridges, flyovers, and so on and so forth. Yeah, which is good. They're all in the right direction. They are the basic hard infrastructure on which even the public transport is going to rest. But if we don't start planning and start implementing public transport simultaneously, we are going to commit the same error of the past, which is what led most of our cities to where it is today. Hardly can you find any of Nigerian cities today that have integrated public transport system embedded into the master plan right from the beginning. So something has to be done in this direction, especially because now we're in the season of COVID, where social distancing is important, and you cannot enforce social distancing if you don't have the public transport infrastructure. People have to maintain social distancing at bus stops, at terminals. People have to maintain distance even in buses. And a lot of this infrastructure, if they're not available, then you have to then contend with rapid multiplication of to be looked at, at the initial stage, and also as the state is planning to renew itself. And then, according to United Nations, more than 70% of the world population will move into city by 2050. And I think Kaduna needs to think in this direction also, that if these people are coming in on a daily basis from all over the place because of what you are doing now, because you are not going to suddenly become a magnet. So how do I move people around, And for us, we've seen a lot of positive opportunities that I think government can leverage on at the moment. One of them is the Abuja-Kaduna light rail. The state is very, very opportune and blessed to have that line, which for me is the only functional rail line in Nigeria today. Beautiful opportunity at Rigasa to do some interchange around that area. I'm going to specific more on this, but this is just at the early stage. You can have the same thing around Kastua, around Kawo, Rigachiku. So you have a couple of these pockets of opportunity that where you can create transit-oriented development, park and ride facility, transport and commerce can meet, and effectively you can create an economy around this area. So a lot of this can happen as you go on with the urban renewal, but they have to be planned together at the moment. Otherwise, the state is going to be overwhelmed with the influx of population in a couple of years. And if all of these are not taken on simultaneously, you would have a situation in your hand where you are building more roads. What we know is that the more roads you build, what it does is that it encourages motorization. And anywhere in the world, you cannot build roads to satisfy motorization. The more roads you build, the more people buy car and fill up the road. And that's why you notice most of the time, before you open an urban road, you place is filled, then you ask for say, where are these cars coming from? So the propensity for people to build, buy more cars, and when they see nice road and good roads, it's always there. So at this point, I will only pause and say that, well, the SSS is in the right direction, but a lot needs to be done in the area of public transportation and in the area of commercial transport development and transit-oriented development. Thank you.
Very much. Thanks very much, Biodu, for pointing out the intended and unintended consequences of infrastructure development and the fact that we need to plan for it. Thank you very much. We'll hear more about this from you later on. Right now, let's go directly, let's take some questions. Let's rather direct some questions at the panelists. For this is the part I'm very keen on because I really, really want to get their take on certain key issues that relate to infrastructure. So we will start with Uche. And Uche, we've heard a lot about the financing gap, the financing deficit. Some of our panelists have talked about international finance and different sources of finance. Now, in this competitive environment for limited capital, how can state governments improve their eligibility for international and national development finance? How can they get themselves at the front of the queue? How do they beat others to get that much coveted and much needed financing? Uche.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think the first thing is to recognize, as we've all done, that it's a competitive environment. I think the first thing the states will do is really what Kaduna has done very well, improving the ease of doing business. And I say that in a very, it has to be contextualized, and in the sense that the state needs to not see itself as it being enough to compete and be number one in Nigeria. Next to London, next to Singapore, next to Rwanda, next to any other city to compete for the same capital. So the benchmark for putting yourself ready for competition needs to be really, really high. The second is obviously looked at the creditworthiness of the state. And I speak that only because I know there are constraints in the federal structure that we run today for states to take on real liabilities themselves. But I think almost every country that I know that has infrastructure at a level that is really, really high tends to have debt to GDP almost about 100%. So there's a perception that debt is bad. It isn't. And be it at the state level, be it at the city level, be it at the federal level, it really is about what you do with it. Can you do something that is productive? So to the extent that that is easy and possible, then why not? The third thing, obviously, is, like I mentioned earlier, is being able to be out there and pitch for the capital. Events like this are great, but events also where you're out there pitching, because at the end of the day, the truth about it is nobody's going to capital in your state if you're not out there asking for it. And investors and bankers will only pay attention to the person that they know. So you're going to go out there and pitch for it. Number 4, think about what the world is looking for. The theme about energy efficiency is not a joke. It is easy today to get 6 out of 7 sources of capital today will insist that you meet ESG metrics, and they will actually insist that you look at things that are energy efficient. And for us as a country, this is something we need to worry about. The amount of capital going into the oil and gas sector is very, very low relatively. Many of them are cutting capex by more than 40%, which means that we must be in a hurry to get our oil out of the ground, get money into the system, but they also look at other areas where capital is going to. Anything that, in my opinion, checks those boxes that make international finance interesting should be things that we should be putting in front of them. I don't see why we don't have a network of really distributed electric grids based on solar in Kaduna State for various clusters of industrial output. And of course, finally, we've talked about security. I know that I have better information than most people who are listening. I know all the effort being made by the government. Quite frankly, also, it's a PR war in so many ways. And whilst you're fixing it and people recognize the challenges, the reality also is to sell yourself out there in a manner that people understand the factual data and actually realize that the investments will go a long way in helping solving some of these security challenges. The final point, obviously, I cannot overemphasize, and I know people talk about inflow of people coming in. the city and the state and everybody needs to be very careful about who comes in. Skilled manpower is the number one attraction for investors. Yes, you do that, and I keep talking about is the number one attraction. And I think if you do all of that and you put yourself out there, there is money to be had. And one last point I want to make today, the real pools of international capital, frankly, that are real, are coming from very few countries. The EU is number one in my opinion. China is number two in my opinion. And then number three, believe it or not, in places like Canada. We need to spend our energy in places where people want to come to our country, people want to come to our state, but we must be out there selling the state. All these accomplishments, and I love this event, all these accomplishments should be showcased. And that is really how we start to compete for the limited pool of capital. I'll stop here.
Much, Uche. Very informative response. I think this segues very nicely into the question I have for Uyi. Uyi, now, what do we do? Why haven't we had as much success as we should have with developing PPPs and getting private sector investment? You did mention this earlier before. Why is the private sector, for a state like Kaduna, we've tried to pull our act together, but why is the private sector not beating our door down more than they should, more than they are? So what needs to be done, Uyi? Why do we not have the success that other countries have with private sector bolstering infrastructure development? Uyi?
Thank you very much. As Uche said, I mean, in this case, we need to really expand our outlook. Our competition is not with subnational. I mean, we should look at competition outside Nigeria if we have to compete for resources. There are the standard things around the regulatory environment, security. I don't want to overflog those issues because if Kaduna State is number one on ease of doing business, that means you relatively have sorted out all those issues. But let's remember that at the end of the day, for private sector, they need some kind of returns. So how do you create a cluster of more attractive investments? And I hear from today that there are huge opportunities still in our Greek sector. The Benin, Gwari areas are here today. It's giving opportunities in the area of mining. One of the things I talked about earlier is we need to quickly go to the starting blocks and see how we can take advantage of COVID-19. What we've seen recently is that most people, there are supply chain disruptions. So over the years, we're going to be seeing how we can take advantage of that and try and develop supply chains locally. So those are the things we're going to be selling as a means of reducing overall costs. So how do we get efficiency so that we can spend and deploy monies elsewhere? So the priorities around areas that private sectors we have adequate returns is still remains important. So we look at infrastructure guarantees. These are a valuable means of mobilizing resources to backstop finances for large-scale multi-year infrastructural projects. That is very key for me as we deal with all the issues around. We can also think around increasing calls. There have been increasing calls by governments, private sector players for multilateral development banks. I mean, Uche and the others can talk more about these and increase uptake in their risk mitigation instruments. So those multinational institutions will mitigate the risk, and at the end of the day, we sell ourselves to see how we can get the private sectors in. In my view, at the end of this exercise, let's create those portfolios of opportunities where the private sector can really thrive and really market it through central PPP authorities. I'm sure I'll be preaching to the converted in this case because I know Kaduna State already has a strong PPP structure. And as I said earlier, one of the advantages you have in your Infrastructure Development Council is because you are bringing all parties together to be aligned, because that's one of the problems we've always had in the past. Different government agencies are not really aligned and there's no transparency. I mean, you get that from the anchor of that Infrastructure Council that is cross MDAs, everybody totally aligned. That will really, the private sector sees that there are no hindrances, as it were. So by take, let's leverage how we can bring local supply chains over a long period, and we can improve on the transparency, and everybody fully aligns, and I'm sure we will further improve as it were.
Very much, Uyi. Even though I can't help but wonder, as you have mentioned, as I did, as has been mentioned already about governments providing the enabling environment, the regulatory framework, and the rest, I just can't help but wonder if our Nigerian private sector or the collective private sector does not need to be a bit more sophisticated to appreciate the rate of the reward to risk ratio involved in long-term investments. But you don't need to answer that. We'll come back to that afterwards. Thank you very much, Uyi. Okay, so let me go to Ahmed. Ahmed, you did speak about the environment, which is actually very, very important. And infrastructure the world over is facing two key challenges: urbanization, which has been mentioned a lot, and climate change. Now, I want to hear from you. How relevant are these? Well, we've talked about urbanization, but not climate change. How relevant are these? Is this for Nigeria? And what should Nigerian governments be doing to mitigate this issue? Ahmed, can we hear from you?
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. So as you rightly mentioned, infrastructure delivery, of course, is very critical to national development, and urbanization and climate change are two key challenges affecting global development. The effect of these two challenges are not any different in Nigeria. So on one hand, cities have the potential to serve as engines of change, driving economic growth and pulling more people out of poverty. This is even more important looking at the growth path of the Nigerian population. So addressing these factors certainly is very, very important, just in Nigeria, just like in other nations. And urbanization continues to increase pressure on the infrastructure, as some of the speakers mentioned earlier. That way, with the growing infrastructure deficit, this is actually compounded given the urbanization rate. So this is best exemplified by the UN projections that Lagos is set to be the world's largest city by 2050. In addition to the country also becoming the third most populous country in the world. So on the other hand, climate change could undercut the positive impact of urbanization by
Ahmed, I'm so sorry. I've just been
propagating.
informed by the anchor that we've really taken up a lot of time, which is a shame because our discussion is very
Oh my God,
important. But
we're
can I
just
ask you to
getting
quickly
started
round
and
up so that
time
we
is
can
going.
ask
So
questions
I'll
of
try and
others,
move
please?
around it very,
Your
very
comments are
quickly.
very interesting, but I think you're giving too much of a background. Can you please focus on the response and just deliver your comment? Thank you so much, and I am sorry for this. Ahmed, please continue.
Okay, so essentially, for us, given the challenges that are coming through the climate change, what we tend to do is always rely on reliable power, which is providing power through mini grids, clean, reliable energy for hospitals and schools and universities at large. So this way, the kind of projects we actually deploy would not be able to stand in the way of urbanization. But of course, within the rural areas, if we're also deploying infrastructure that is giving us clean energy, it means that we are actually increasing, our chances of surviving the climate change. So I think our programs are very environmentally friendly, which is going to be advantageous to mitigate those challenges that we have. So with the time constraint, I don't want to continue I feel like there are, more people that want to talk, but of course, this conversation.
For your input. So next, we're going to go to Jackson Okwevo. Jackson, Now, as a key player in the infrastructure industry, in the infrastructure, the practical side of infrastructure, we've talked a lot about supply chains and about the disruption that the COVID-19 phenomenon has caused. But what I want to ask you is this leading to greater focus on local and secondary suppliers? And what is the effect on quality and cost? We've all heard about the disruptions in the value chains. What is the impact? And how can we mitigate it? Really quickly, please, I'm sorry. Please, Jackson, 1 minute, please. Thank you. Please unmute Jackson. We're still not hearing
Hello?
him.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
We can hear you, Jackson.
Okay. So, as I was saying, like going by that, the cost control of that, it doesn't really affect, it didn't really affect our own project based on the fact that the way we conduct our own project before we embark on any project, at first, we first liaise with all our partners that we work with in general, locally and also globally. So we look at all kind of materials we want to bring in. So all the materials that we bring into our project, at first, from the onset of mobilization, we first acquire all the offshore. Then having said that, when they put for us, and at the time that all nations were put to halt, that as we're moving areas, and all affect the cost of the project itself. Then having said that, there's a design and also specification for that to compromise because of the pricing or also because of the locals that you have on ground. So if we have to work with locals on ground, which we usually do, at first
but I think we got the gist of what you were trying to say. Speaker, please.
Materials, because we don't look into compromising on our quality.
Or Jackson. Halima, I'm very, very sorry. I was reading out there are opportunities that exist for governments to tap into, given that vulnerable to the dynamics of budget.
For its priorities. One of which is from certain assets that it owns, and also worked on in the past and actually doing so in advance to be able to provide immediate cash use of the government vehicles, which they use to be able to leverage third-party financing. So in this case, what the government does is be able to take some equity in the projects that it's infrastructure. This thinking has come